A former WWE referee and producer joins Impact Wrestling. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling. And we're going to talk about today one name that has actually rejoined the company, considering he was with Impact Wrestling way before. We're talking in the really early days of 2002, 2003, and a name that was widely associated with WWE for, nearly over 15 years. That being former WWE referee and producer and a former pro wrestler in his own right, member of the Armstrong family, that being Scott Armstrong. Scott Armstrong has indeed rejoined Impact Wrestling. This isn't much of a surprise to most people because Scott Armstrong, of course, made his return to Impact Wrestling last week at Friday's Emergent Special, and Mike Johnson of PW Insider has since reported that Armstrong is officially part of Impact Wrestling. Now, he's not just going to be an on-camera referee. He has so much experience behind the scenes as a producer, as a behind-the-scenes worker, as a creative assistant as well during his time in WWE. So alongside his refereeing duties, Armstrong is going to serve as a producer behind the scenes for Impact Wrestling as well, which is a great addition, frankly, to their behind-the-scenes team. Now, Armstrong had been, as I mentioned, with WWE for a really long period of time. He had previously been with WWE as a referee and a producer from 2006 until he was released, along with several other names, in NXT on January 5th, 2022 of this year. As I mentioned, he was part of that group of people that were really Triple H's guys. Remember that big team of people that Triple H had? They were Triple H guys, whether it was Scott Armstrong, whether it was, Road Dogg as well, part of the Armstrong family as well, whether it was people like William Regal, people like Samoa Joe, people like, it goes on to I forget his name, the person that was the head writer or creator of Gabe Sapolsky, him as well. People like that that were released by WWE earlier this year. Scott Armstrong was part of that group as NXT was transitioning from the black and gold version of NXT to NXT 2.0, that whilst was still being headed up by Shawn Michaels, at the time it was being overseen by Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard, of course, something that is no longer the case. But Armstrong was the official for several major matches in WWE history. This included 2 WrestleMania main events, the fondly remembered Money in the Bank 2011 main event, which saw John Cena versus CM Punk. He was part of that. He actually counted the 3 count in Chicago that evening. Later on, after that, he became the Authority's crooked referee on WWE television as Triple H and Stephanie McMahon tried to stop Daniel Bryan from becoming the WWE champion on several occasions. After he failed to stop Bryan from winning the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 30, the official was used sporadically to do with the Authority's bidding. This included at Survivor Series in 2014 when he came out as the crooked referee, but before he could do the count of 3 in the Survivor Series elimination match that had the Authority versus Team Cena, out came Sting. He had a brief return in January 2016 when Sheamus was feuding with Roman Reigns as well. As I mentioned, though, this isn't the first time that Armstrong has indeed worked with Impact Wrestling before, serving as a referee. As I mentioned, during those early days of NWA TNA rather, he was at several of those events. I believe, unless I'm mistaken, I think he worked TNA's first show back in 2002. You can go back and watch that on YouTube. But during those early Asylum days as well, he was a referee during that time period as well. And it's a great pickup for Impact Wrestling. It's a really a great pickup as well. I think not just as a referee, it must be said, also just as an official, as someone that can really add to the situation in Impact Wrestling. I think he does a fantastic job. And again, the situation when it comes to the referees as well, you had Brian Hebner, who recently announced his retirement, or his impending retirement from Impact Wrestling. You need someone that you need someone that's going to pick up where Brian Hebner left off. Of course, Slammiversary weekend was Brian Hebner's last full-time wrestling gig, so it would make sense that they get a new senior referee in for on-camera stuff and big match main events, but also it would make sense that they get help behind the scenes. And it's funny how things work out and they move together, because now it makes sense. I did the video, was it last week? It might have been at some point earlier than then, when I spoke about Road Dogg. And of course, Road Dogg, controversial figure because of some of his opinions are frankly ludicrous, and his just desperation for a job, going around begging and all this kind of stuff. But he has steady work. He's got his podcast. He helped produce and put together the Ric Flair's Last Match event for ad-free shows as part of StarCast Weekend. He was very instrumental in all of that. But he also said recently that he was going to be sitting with the Impact Wrestling team backstage, some of the producers, some of the creative team. He was going to be sitting with them at the Emergence event. And at the time I said, look, that's a good move for him. It's a good move for Impact Wrestling. A lot of experience there. Road Dogg, again, got to a very high level in WWE. At one point was the lead writer for SmackDown. Not that I think he did a tremendous job. He was a lead writer for SmackDown in 2017 when SmackDown, the product, wasn't very good, even though he had a fantastic roster. He made Jinder Mahal the WWE champion, brought back the Great Khali in a Punjabi prison finish with Randy Orton. It was just not great stuff, it must be said. But I thought, look, that's a great experience for Impact Wrestling to have. And now that Scott Armstrong is a producer behind the scenes, it starts to make a lot of sense. That does make a lot of sense. So I do think it's a good move for Impact Wrestling, as I mentioned, when it comes to just the refereeing part of it too, not just the creative side of things or the producer side of things. If you look at the referee side of things, the referee position has become so undervalued, in my opinion. You know, I remember growing up watching WWE or watching whatever, and having, say, Earl Hebner, easy for me to say, be a referee, or see him be the referee, it felt like a big deal. Seeing Mike Chioda as the referee, it felt like, oh, this is a big match. Or they had their own, you know, they didn't get in the way, but you knew their name, you knew it was a big deal. And having Scott Armstrong, who, as I mentioned, has refereed 2 WrestleMania main events, has been part of some of the biggest matches, certainly in recent modern day WWE history. I mentioned CM Punk versus John Cena. The list is endless of those big matches that he's been involved in. Having him be the man in the middle of the ring, the official, counting the 1, 2, 3, makes it feel like a big deal. So again, I do think it's a fantastic pickup, it must be said, for Impact Wrestling. Behind the scenes, I think it probably does lead to some more stuff, as I mentioned, i.e. Road Dogg coming in on a more permanent basis, because of course you've got the family member involvement there. So I think that will be the case. But with the retirement of Brian Hebner, it makes a ton of sense to get in this experienced referee to represent Impact Wrestling. And Impact Wrestling are really good at that. You know, as I mentioned, whilst the talent roster or the talent free agency market has dried up somewhat over the last year or so, with so many people getting released by WWE or the contracts expiring, then being picked up, there are still different types of free agents out there, and we've seen that with those people that were involved in NXT earlier this year, i.e. your William Regals, your Scott Armstrongs, your Road Doggs, etc. They're all starting to get picked up as well. Of course, William Regal in AEW, now Scott Armstrong in Impact Wrestling. Looks like Road Dogg will probably be involved in Impact Wrestling as well moving forward. Be interesting to see what happens with Gabe Sapolsky as well. I don't know if he has any interest in moving in or back into the pro wrestling space. And of course, with Triple H now back in charge of WWE's main roster in terms of creative and talent relations, certainly anything is possible with some of those free agents as well there too. So plenty going on in the world of Impact Wrestling. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Scott Armstrong rejoining Impact Wrestling. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.